Trucking right along. I do like that I'm still able to be articulate even though I'm tired. Great hope for my profession. Not that I want to make a habit of this professionally, but sometimes it happens. Sometimes you have a bad night and you can't sleep and you get 2 hours of sleep and now you're just trying to get through the day and you still gotta you still gotta do what you gotta do, you know? It's been a long 2 months, like September and August. It's been a long 2 months. And I'm hoping for greener skies on the horizon with October. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about classics again. I know I've posted a video before about it, but now I have a point of reference and I want to specifically talk about some stuff. Um, where is Gatsby? You know, I don't see it. I don't know what I did with Gatsby, but shouldn't it? This is in alphabetical order. Shouldn't it be up there? Hmm. Or maybe it's still in the list. I don't know. But I got a like special pretty edition of Gatsby and it had two other books in it. This Side of Paradise, and I can't remember what the other one is called because I started reading This Side of Paradise. It's by F. Scott Fitzgerald, not Dickens. I apologize for that. Um, but yeah, I did not know what to write about. There were some words that I didn't understand that I still don't know how to pronounce, and I just wrote them down. Um, there is no, I don't know what the plot of this book was. I was reading it, and then I was just like, I don't think this book is for me. So now we're going to have a conversation about classics. So, um, when I was in grade school, we read quite a few classics, actually. Um, Let me see. We've got I Read the Scarlet Letter on my own. We've got A Tale of Two Cities. Down here is the picture of Dorian Gray and Jubilee. We've got Kindred up there. Chronicle of a Death Foretold is somewhere up there. Their Eyes Were Watching God was up there. I've got Inferno on that bookshelf. Um, yeah, I wrote all of them down. Chronicle of a Death Foretold, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Things Fall Apart, The Bluest Eye, which I did not like. I do not like Toni Morrison, but her writing. But anyway, um, we read A Picture of Dorian Gray, we read Inferno, we read To Kill a Mockingbird, and we read Tale of Two Cities. We read Romeo and Juliet, Streetcar Named Desire, Great Gatsby, read Badge of Courage, hated that too. I did not read Animal Farm, but my class read Animal Farm. Um, Anthem, 1984, Macbeth, Candide, Handmaid's Tale. We read all of these things. Now, you will note that I said maybe four books by authors who weren't white. Things Fall Apart, A Chronicle of a Death Foretold, Kindred, Jubilee. Though I read those two in college, so the ones I read in grade school. Things Fall Apart, Their Eyes Were Watching God, Bluest Eye, and A Chronicle of a Death Foretold. Three black authors and one Hispanic author. That's it. Everything else was written by white people. I think I said like two Shakespeare things. Yeah. Everything else was written by a bunch of friggin' white people, friggin' white straight people. So, and all of that is only what I can recall, and most of that was in about 2 years, my junior and senior year of high school. Couple of things about that. Number one, yes, there are barriers to getting published, and self publishing is not always a guarantee that a book is going to be good. I have quite a few self published books back there, but all of my hardback ones have been published by a publishing house. And I understand that sometimes being self published is not the greatest. I get that. It also doesn't offer you a lot of publicity. I understand that. We cannot discount the entire genre of not genre, we cannot discount the entire industry of self published books because they're important too, and there could be any number of reasons why they didn't go through a publishing house. That's number one. Number two, I've noticed that dystopia can be hard for writers of color because I also have like The Giver, and that's also written by a white person, and um, Not gonna lie, probably because a lot of POCs are already living in that existence. Like Handmaid's Tale in 1984, the constant surveillance and control of our reproductive habits. A lot of us are already living in that reality. So dystopia is kind of difficult, I've noticed, for black authors to write. Three. We're gonna forget about the race thing for a second because I think there's a bigger picture here than just the race thing. And it's just about classics in general. I don't enjoy the idea of a book being classic, meaning that it's better. Those two things are not synonymous. For example, my mom read 1984 in high school and she graduated in 1984. Like she's almost in her 50s now, or she's in her mid 50s now. Like that is absolutely ridiculous. Why are we still reading these same books? Like, it being classic does not mean that it is necessarily better. With the exception of Dystopia, a lot of the reasons why we read these books are for literary devices, like foreshadowing. We don't, we don't, Dune's got, well, I don't recommend reading Dune in a class setting, but still, like, Dune's got a lot of foreshadowing. Um, Sherlock Holmes has some in there. Uh, Artemis Fowl has quite a bit of foreshadowing. Like, why do we always have to read like Skin of the Deep? You can't. It's on my favorite. It's on this bookshelf over here. But Skin of the Deep also's got foreshadowing because she can turn into a human for a little bit and she falls in love with a human. So obviously she's probably going to be human by the time the story is over. Like it because of why we're reading these books, they don't need to be classic stories. They can be other books. And yes, I understand the banned books thing that's going on. Skin of the Deep, I feel like you could get away with that one because it's not inherently implicit that that story is about that she's a mermaid because of slavery. That's like it's mentioned, but it's not the plot of the book. So I feel like you could get away with that one. Like, um, hang on. You could also find scripts for other plays. Like, why do we always have to read Shakespeare when books like this exist? This is the script book for Sweeney Todd. There's a chorus, there's foreshadowing, there's like rhyme scheme, there's all sorts, like there's dialogue and not narration, but there's like stage directions and stuff like that. And like Sweeney Todd is a really good musical, honestly a classic at this point, and like I don't understand why there's this insistence on the classics. I'm sure there's like an actual reason for it that's probably somewhere in the curriculum, but I don't care. Change the curriculum then. Um, Also, fantastic example of books that are written now being great for life lessons. I have talked at length about the life lessons in this book and how there are things in this book series that some adults don't even have yet. And this would be really good to read with like six to eight crowd, maybe even your ninth graders. Like, and if you're feeling particularly ambitious, do it with your high schoolers too. Like, there's no particular reason other than this is the way we've always done it to only read the classics. Like there's no point. If you want to read like adaptations, like instead of reading Romeo and Juliet, read Queen Mab. It's a novel, but still, like we're already forced to read in schools. So why does it have to be all of these dusty ass books? Number 4. I know I just ranted about classics and I do feel that way still, but now to discuss sexism. Cool. Which plays into the classic thing. I love Pride and Prejudice. Pride and Prejudice is up like third, maybe second or third. Yeah, it's fourth. I love Pride and Prejudice. I love that book. Didn't really care for like Sense and Sensibility or any of those, but like we also read a slave narrative when I was in college. I cannot remember what her last name was, but I believe her first name was Harriet. It was like Curious Incidents in the Life of a Slave Girl. I there are books. I understand that in the past there have been issues with women getting published and being taken seriously. I understand that. But there are female authors who are writing contemporary romance right now. I'm not a good example of that because of Practical Magic, Wings of Ebony, Sylvia Moreno Garcia, like all of these people write fantasy and magic, probably not going to go over well in schools. But I know for a fact that there are lots and lots of women who are writing books now that are good for the literary devices you are trying to teach the children. And also, like, if you must insist on reading something that was written before the 21st century, um I'm actually not sure when Kindred was written, but she's got other books like Octavia Butler and Maya Angelou and Zora Neale Hurston. And as long as you can explain it well, Toni Morrison, and don't badger your students about not liking the imagery because I just don't like the imagery in her books. Like, you don't have to only read books written by men. You don't have to only read books written by old people in the past who are dusty. Like, and also, I can tell you for a fact, when it comes to gender, I'm not sure about like other genders, but I know for a fact that you can't see the book. The writer of Iron Widow, Ziron J. Zhao, the writer of Iron Widow, and also the writer of this book, they are non-binary. Like, there are other gendered people writing books. I have a book that I actually didn't. It was a not for me book that is written by a transgender man. Like, it's not hard. Like, part of the reason as well why I don't really want to talk about college very much, even though I mentioned Octavia Butler who wrote Kindred. Part of the reason why I don't really want to talk about college that much is because you choose those classes. I specifically chose a class where we read slave and neo-slave narratives, which is why I have Kindred and Jubilee. But, like, I don't know. I also went to a liberal arts college, which is going to have like a different curriculum than like a science college, technology college. I don't know if they make science colleges. I'm not a scientist. Anyway, number 5. Now we can talk about the race thing. um, I personally read 2 African American authors, 1 African author, and 1 Colombian author. Um, Chinoe. Oh, I don't want to get his last name wrong. The author who wrote Their Eyes No, yep, that's Zora Neale Hurston. The author who wrote Things Fall Apart is continental African, I believe. Um, the man who wrote Black God's Drums, I believe, is also continental African. And then like Wings of Ebony was written by a black person. Um, I actually think Onyeka might be written by a Afro European. I'm not. I have it right here. Why don't I just check? It's in the back of the book. Oh no, I'm actually right. She's British Nigerian. She was born in Nigeria but raised in London. Like, you can find books that were written by black authors. They have whole sections for it on Goodreads if you can't be bothered to look anywhere else. Like, Dante is written by a white man. Dante, F. Scott Fitzgerald, Shakespeare, George Orwell, Oscar Wilde, and so on. Like, I graduated high school in the late 20 teens. There's little excuse for this. And I was also in the IB program, which is like an international program. So there's even less of an excuse for this. um, we did read books that were written by black people that weren't only in Black History Month, which was nice. But in IB, by the time we got to Black History Month, we were already getting ready for our tests because our teachers were woefully unsupported, which meant that the students were woefully unsupported. But it wasn't our teacher's fault in that case. Um, yeah, black people have a lot of literature and you could choose any of it. Black people write books that aren't about slavery. Black people write books that are not struggle literature. Black people write fantasy books and black people write fun books and you can find them. Like, I just African people write books that are not struggle literature. Asian people write books that are not struggle literature. Every culture on this planet has an author somewhere, and I'm sure that they've written a book and somehow gotten it published. And if they haven't got it published, that's a travesty, an absolute travesty. I just we are in all genres probably except for dystopian. But as previously explained, that's why we're not in dystopian if there aren't any authors who do it. Um, yeah, like it's and do better than finding things that are a metaphor for black people. Or actually cuz I see this one a lot too. Do things that are better than a metaphor for Jewish people. Like we all deserve better. Last point with the LGBTQ thing, with the book bans going on, that's going to be difficult to do in curriculum like in school. Um and it's getting worse, but they also deserve representation. And if you are in an area that hasn't banned that sort of thing, um you should read their books too, because gay people and trans people and bisexual people and lesbians and all of the other things within the alphabet soup all write books. um I will say that sometimes it's just a matter of not knowing that they're out. Like Oscar Wilde, The Picture of Dorian Gray. Yeah, I'm right. Uh, this book, I got like a special copy of it. Um, this book is wildly gay. And apparently it was worse than the original draft. And we read this in schools. And oh my God, the children are surviving. It's not that big a deal, honestly. Anytime someone tells you that gay people want to sexualize the children, show them a picture of one of those memes where it's, or not even one of the memes, like find an actual picture of a baby onesie that says like lady killer, and we're the ones sexualizing the children.